Hello, my name is Haley Dimash, and today I'll be discussing the psychological tests and measurements for the personality trait conscientiousness. So, what is conscientiousness? Well, it's a personality trait. It's considered one of the big five personality traits, which is one of the five broad personality traits that ultimately defines an individual's personality. This trait depicts dutiful, organized, cautious, diligent, and goal-oriented behaviors. And since these are relatively positive behaviors, individuals often strive to achieve high levels of this. So the big five. These five factors create the acronym OCEAN and include openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. There are several personality inventories that measure conscientiousness as well as the remaining big five personality traits. These inventories include the revised Neo-Personality Inventory and the Neo Four-Factor Inventory. These inventories are all considered both valid and reliable by several studies, including the 2008 study by Zhang, Goldberg, Zhao, Tang, and Liu, the 2010 study by Jackson, Wood, Bogg, Walton, Harms, and Roberts, and the 2005 study by Roberts, Sherchenko, Stark, and Goldberg. These studies will also be discussed later within the presentation. Previous studies identify the main facets of conscientiousness as achievement, dependability, impulse control, order, moralistic, and persistence. Now, the Roberts et al. Study, 2005, then cross-analyzed 7 major personality inventories and suggested more reliable factors. They also found correlations in predictive values in work dedication, drug use, and health behaviors. Further studies found strong correlations with achievement and conformity values, and this includes the study by Roques, Sedges, Swartz, and Nafo in 2002. So the results of these studies actually provided new constructs that were more reliable and internally consistent. The constructs included orderliness, industriousness, self-control, responsibility, and traditionalism or conventionalism. Now, these same replicable facets were found in multiple studies, including the Jackson et al. 2010 study, Roberts et al. 2005 study, and the Roberts et al. 2012 study. A major focus of this study was in relation to the Jackson et al. 2010 study, which focused on the behavioral indicators of conscientiousness, known as the BIC. There were 2 BIC factors involved. The BIC 4 factor consisted of responsibility, order, impulse control, and laziness, while the BIC 11 factors consisted of work avoidance, organization, impulsivity, sociability, cleanliness, industriousness, laziness, appearance, punctuality, formality, and responsibility. The overlapping items that showed significant correlation were then extrapolated and applied to the Conscientiousness Inventory, or the CI. The main constructs that were focused on included responsibility, orderliness, laziness, and impulsivity. The peer feedback included further clarifying on some of these items. So the CI scale ended up consisting of 30 items, mostly extrapolated from the BIC4 and BIC11. The measures included 2 different 7-point scales. The first scale, related to frequency, had 13 items and was used in second person. So it would ask an individual, how often do you forget to bring materials to classes or meetings? And then the second scale focused on accuracy, and it asked the individual how accurately a certain item describes them. It was used in first person, so it would ask, I always establish goals for myself, and it would ask an individual to rate it as not accurate at all or very accurate. The scoring was ranged from 30 to 210. Typically, the lower the score, the more unreliable, spontaneous, and disorganized the individual. Then the higher the score, the more dependable, disciplined, and organized. In this table, you'll see all of the items that were used in this inventory, including the scale and the coding that was used. A sample of individuals over the age of 18 were recruited for this study. A total of 731 participants over the age of 18 completed the study. 304 were male, 398 were female, 10 identified as other, and 12 preferred not to say. The sample consisted of mostly white or Caucasian respondents. About 74.8% of individuals that participated were white or Caucasian. The age of individuals ranged from 18 to 64 years. Individuals were mostly recruited through social media platforms. Now, in order to analyze the data that we collected, factor analyses, reliability analyses, one-way ANOVAs, and Pearson correlations were applied. All right, let's talk about the results. For the factor analysis, the principal axis factor with the varimax rotation of the 30 items in the Conscientiousness Inventory survey was conducted from the data collected. It was concluded that the measure contained 8 factors, accounting for 44.52% of the total variance. Factor 1 was labeled punctual, consisted of 5 items, and accounted for 20.06% of the variance. Factor 2 was organization, 7 items, accounting for 7.26% of the total variance. Factor 3, responsibility. It was 5 items and accounted for 5.6% of the total variance. Factor 4 was labeled as impulsivity, contained 4 items, and accounted for 3.57% of the total variance. Factor 5 was labeled budgeting, accounted for 2 items, and accounted for 2.61% of total variance. Factor 6, laziness, had 3 items, and 1.97%. Factor 7, cautiousness, had 2 items and accounted for 1.92%. Factor 8 was labeled negativity, had 2 items and accounted for 1.53%. There was 1 item, item 10, that exhibited cross-loading factors. Table 1 exhibits the total conscientiousness inventory scale, including the Pearson correlations. Here's the scree plot for the factor analysis. The Cronbach's alpha found the CI scale to be highly reliable at 0.85. Most items appeared to be worthy of retention. Item 14 deletion should be considered, since the corrected item scale is not significant, and if that were to be removed, it would increase the Cronbach's alpha from 0.85 to 0.86, and the item scale correlations would range from 0.11 to 0.57. Average scores ranged from 60 to 188, and the frequency distribution shown in Figure 1 showed an acceptable normal distribution. A one-way analysis of variance, or ANOVA, showed no significant differences between sex or CI score, nor between ethnicity and CI score. However, the correlation analysis did show a relationship between age and CI score. There was a positive, statistically significant correlation. Overall, the factor analysis should be revised. The item factors should be corrected to be categorized following the BIC 4 and 11, which they were originally constructed to follow. These factors can either just be refactored, the items can be reduced so that they fit in between the 4 factors, or the items that didn't fit in between the 4 initial factors can be specified to where they do fit into those factors. Further, there was a significant positive correlation between age and conscientiousness, which indicates that as an individual ages, they grow more conscientious. Now, perhaps there should be a way to predict if there is a point of being too conscientious. While the behaviors within this trait are seen as positive, at some point it is possible to become too conscientious, where your dutiful and flexible behaviors become strict and inflexible. So it might be ideal to create a point of being too conscientious. Limitations and further research. So there were a few errors in this study that should have been corrected. When pertaining to demographics, a lot of individuals provided their gender rather than their sex. A few people said that they were non-binary. Other people actually said they were bisexual, which is completely different, but that's all right. Since gender is more socially acceptable and it's more socially discussed, it should be probably requested more so than sex. So the factor analysis revision, as previously discussed, the integration of conceptual application would add another dimension to this conscientiousness inventory. So instead of asking individuals their behavior, it would be ideal to ask them what they would do in a specific scenario. Thank you for listening, and let me know if you have any comments or questions.